Our last topic in Unit 4 is x and y intercepts. So the x-intercept is the point where a line/curve crosses the x-axis. And so the y-intercept is the point where the line/curve crosses the y-axis. So in order to determine the x and y intercepts of a line based on a graph, for the x-intercept we look for where the line crosses the x-axis, like we just talked about. So look, it says, what is the x-intercept of the line below? So it's talking about down here. So where does our line cross the x-axis? Crosses it right here, which makes this the x-intercept. And that point, it's an ordered pair. What's the x value? 2. What's the y value? Because we didn't go up or down, it's 0. The y-coordinate for an x-intercept will always be 0. For the y-intercept, again, we look for where the line crosses the y-axis. So using our graph below, what is the y-intercept? So now we're looking at our vertical line, our y-axis, crosses right here. So what is the ordered pair? Well, did we go left or right any? No, which means the x value is 0, and then we went down 4, so -4. The x-coordinate will always be 0 when we're talking about the y-intercept. The next thing our notes ask us to do is graphing a line given the x and y intercepts. So it says graph a line with the x-intercept of -1 and a y-intercept of 2. So in order to do so, we need to come up with 2 ordered pairs. And if you think back to what we just talked about in our notes, when we're talking about the x-intercept, the y value is always 0. So I have -1, 0. And when I'm talking about the y-intercept, the x value is always 0. So make sure that when you're writing these, you're writing them as ordered pairs, not just numbers. Okay. So now I can plot these. -1, 0 is my x, and then 0, 2 is my y, and now I can create a line that goes through those 2 points. If you have questions about this, please make sure you pause your video before moving on. Otherwise, we're going to go down and figure out how to determine the x and y intercepts given an equation. So for this, again, we need to think about what we've talked about in our notes. When we're talking about the x-intercept, the y value is 0. So the first thing we're going to do is solve for the x-intercept. And in order to do that, we make y equal to 0. So I'm going to say x minus 2. Rather than writing y, I'm going to plug in 0 because the y value is always 0. Set it equal to 10. Well, anything times 0 is 0, so x equals 10. So there's my x-intercept, and it wants us to write them as ordered pairs. So the x-intercept is 10, 0, because we plugged in 0 for y. For the y-intercept, I'm going to do the same thing, but plug in 0 for my x value. So 0 minus 2y equals 10. I'm just going to write over here, which leaves me with -2y equals 10. So how do I get y by itself? Divide by -2, so y equals -5. So the ordered pair, again, we made x equal to 0, and the y value is -5. All right, looking at number 2, again, for the x-intercept, we make y 0. So I have 4x equals 0 plus 2. which leaves me with 4x equals 2. So how do I get x by itself? Divide by 4 on both sides, x equals 1/2. Just because we got a fraction doesn't mean that the answer is wrong, it's just a fraction, which is fine. So my x-intercept, again, as an ordered pair is 1/2, comma, 0. I'm going to do the same thing for the y-intercept. We plug in 0 for x, so 4 times 0 equals negative y plus 2. Anything times 0 is 0. Now there are two ways I can go about solving this problem. I'm going to do it the easier of the two ways. I need to get y on the other side. So rather than subtracting 2 and then dividing by a negative, I'm just going to add y to both sides, which leaves me with y equals 2. So my y-intercept, what was our x value? Always 0, and our y value is 2. All right, last problem. Now for this problem, we're given f of x. So we're given it in function notation. F of x is representing what variable? It's our y. So I'm going to say, we always plug in 0 for y when we're solving for x. So 0 equals 3/4 x plus 12. And now I need to solve for x. So I subtract 12 from both sides. How do I get rid of that fraction? What do I need to do? Multiply by the reciprocal. So I'm going to multiply by 4/3 on both sides. And so that means these cancel out, which leaves me with 4/3 times negative 12 is negative 16 equal to x. So my x-intercept is negative 16, 0. Right, now I need to solve for the y-intercept. So in order to do that, I'm plugging in 0 for what value? For x, right? So again, f of x is just another way to write y. So y equals 3/4 times 0 plus 12. Anything times 0 is 0, so y equals 12. So the ordered pair is 0, 12. And then we could be able to graph that on a line given those x and y intercepts and then draw our line from there. If you have questions about where those came from, make sure that you pause your video and raise your hand before moving on. Otherwise, we are going to go to the next page. There are some special cases. So it says, find the x and y intercepts of the equation. The first one is y equals 7. So the first thing I'm going to do is graph that line. What type of line is y equals 7? We have to think about that acronym, HOI. Okay? I have a horizontal line at 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So right here, I have a horizontal line. Well, what is the x-intercept of this line? Does it ever touch the x-axis? No, it doesn't. So there is no x-intercept. My y-intercept, where does it cross the y-axis? At the ordered pair 0, 7. So if your line never crosses the x-axis, there is no x-intercept. All right, and then our next one says, find the x and y intercepts of the equation x equals negative 4. So what type of line is this? If I have an x equals a number line, thus, right? Vertical line, undefined slope, x equals. So I have a vertical line at negative 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Draw my line. So what is the x-intercept of this line? Again, we always write it as ordered pairs. House is at negative 4, 0. And then my y-intercept, does it ever touch the y-axis? No. So there is no y-intercept. There is none. As always, if you have questions, please make sure you ask before moving on to your you-dos. Before we get to our you-dos, though, we have one more formula to add to our formula sheet about x and y intercepts. So we have x-intercept, which is y equals 0, and the ordered pair is x comma 0. So all that means is we set the y equal to 0 and solve for x. And then we have the y-intercept. Sorry about that. So for the y-intercept, x equals 0. So we set x equal to 0 in our equation, and we write our ordered pair as 0 comma y. Once you are finished writing that, you can go ahead and go back to your you-dos. Just know that on your test next time we see you, there will be a formula quiz. So make sure that you are memorizing those formulas and making sure that you can write them down and label them.